Hello everyone, my name is Arja Krauchenberg and I've been asked by the OEDL to put forward a short statement on how parents are experiencing the current crisis caused by COVID-19 with particular regard to education. I've been active in parents' representation for over 20 years. Actually, from the first day that the eldest of my 3 children started to attend a kindergarten. From 2013 to 19, I was a member of the board of directors of the European Parents Association, and during the last year and a half of my mandate also served as its president. I will endeavour to tackle the issue of parents in the crisis from 2 angles, before drawing some conclusions and outlining a potential way forward. Firstly, parents in their role as the primary, not only chronologically, but also potentially the best educators of their children. Secondly, parents in their role as responsible adult citizens or inhabitants of the country they reside in. Of course, these 2 roles are intertwined, and it's not always easy to separate them. But I would like to start with the second role. As citizens, parents have been hit hard by the crisis, as have all other people, whether they've had to change to a home office or continued working in the essential infrastructure of their respective countries. For example, medical personnel, pharmacists, staff in shops that were kept open to ensure the continued supply of food and other important items for everyday life, gas and electricity, services like garbage collection, news and broadcasting, etc. Or whether they were faced being furloughed or unemployed. On top of these challenges faced by everyone, parents are also concerned about the health and safety of their children and their continuous education. As schools in more than 180 countries across the world closed their doors for face-to-face teaching, affecting formal learning for more than 90% of the world's pupils. Parents have had to adopt the role of teachers, or at least learning coaches, a role which some of them were already familiar with, being used to supporting their children in doing homework or presentations. But for many, this has presented a huge challenge, either because they were obliged to work from home at the same time, or because they lack the necessary equipment or knowledge. Here once again, the most vulnerable groups were hit the hardest. Single-parent families who could no longer rely on the help of grandparents or other helping hands. Parents whose language skills in the language of instruction are not sufficient enough to support their children. Precarious living conditions in crowded households where it is difficult to find a calm place to study and learn, on top of existential fears of how to pay for food, electricity and rent when confronted with loss of income. The health crisis that we are facing because of the pandemic has also caused economic and social crises that will certainly last a lot longer than the virus itself. There are currently many teams working on finding an efficient cure or even a vaccine, so we can reasonably expect to have either one or the other, or perhaps even both, within a year or 2. But the economic and social consequences will take much longer to overcome, and education will play a major role in how we do that, and into which kind of society we develop in the future. Unfortunately, the crisis is being used in some countries by political leaders to not only restrict the rights of free movement of its citizens, necessary to contain the spreading of the virus, but also to adopt measures which intend to restrict the free choice of parents for the education of their children, by introducing laws which make the running of non-state schools virtually impossible. This is not the time to settle ideological conflicts, but we all do have a duty to act in the best interests of our children. We should lead by example, show our children how cooperation works, and that 70 years after the Schuman Declaration, his call for solidarity doesn't remain unheard in the toughest situation facing Europe since World War II. As with the search for a vaccine, it's the collaboration of the education sector that will be key to its success. Education providers, principals, teachers, parents and students should together organize the gradual reopening of schools, giving consideration to local conditions and in accordance with government guidelines and recommendations. The big challenges, but also opportunities of our time, such as digitalization and globalization, can only be used peacefully and to the advantage of all if we decide together how we want to go about them in the future, and then work on these goals according to the principle of subsidiarity, which means that each level in society, local, regional, national, contributes to the decision-making and implementation to the best extent possible at their level. The education sector can be a forerunner in these efforts if we draw from the lessons learned during the COVID-19 pandemic. What has worked well, and what do we want to keep from this time? What were, and in many countries still are, the challenges, and which solutions have already been found to overcome them? For example, a huge hackathon was organized recently by the European Commission on the initiative of Commissioner Mario Gabriel, responsible for innovation, research, culture, education and youth, that has brought forward a number of great projects, also in the field of remote learning and education, that can be used after the crisis as well. We should also look at what we are missing from before the lockdown. What do we really want to re-establish? Why and how? This is a good moment to reflect on former practices and on their sustainability in the 21st century, with all the new challenges being faced, including the pandemic, but not exclusively. To quote Winston Churchill, "A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity. An optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty." I would like to end this statement by encouraging all of you to seize the opportunity that the situation provides for a rethink of education as we have previously practiced it. The pandemic has shown the importance of cooperation between all stakeholders in the education process that parents' associations have been advocating for a long time. Let's decide together on how to proceed further to achieve a holistic approach that puts the learner in the focus and makes it possible for all children to develop their unique potential, leaving no one behind. Thank you for listening.